I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. All right. Welcome to Sab's podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. My special guest tonight is Tina Brown. You may have seen her on here before, but she has an update with her situation. Tina, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. So, Tina, for those who may not be aware, I know you've talked about this before, but we do have more viewers this time around. And also, there has been an update with your particular situation. For those who are not aware, Tina's sister was an Amazon employee. Tina, can you please explain to everyone what happened to your sister and how it relates to Amazon?
Okay. My sister was working for Amazon. She started off as a driver, and then from there she went to the fresh department. And 2018, she started off as a driver. From there she went to fresh, and then she went to prime, and then she went to the warehouse, DDC3. It's located in Northern Virginia. At that time, when she went to the warehouse, she became a night sorter, and she was a night sorter package handler, stower, from 2000, I want to say 19 until 2021, the day of her death. During the pandemic, my sister took the position as a safety champion. They gave her this role after she complained several times about the COVID being in the building, about the warehouse being unsafe, about people being sick, about there not being enough proper PPE, no mask, several emails, several phone calls to corporate. And I want to say about a month later, they sent her an email along with her supervisor and said that they were going to be starting a new position called the safety champion, the safety COVID department. And she would be able, because of her care for the warehouse and care for the company, and how, she wanted to promote safety and look out for the well-being of the other employees, because she was scared. Everyone was scared. I used to work there. We were all scared. We didn't know what to do. The warehouse never closed. They never closed it down for cleaning, anything like that. And these were just the simple things that she was asking for. If you can't close the warehouse down, because we know it's open 24 hours, can you at least stop and have the cleaning crew clean the bins, clean the carts, clean the crates for at least 2 hours? All the things she said, she never got any demands as far as yes, no. The only thing she did get was because she was concerned employee, and she had expressed the concerns about what's going on in the warehouse. They offered her the safety champion position. So my sister got that position in early June, and she worked the safety department, the safety champion department, from June until January. My sister's job description was supposed to be, and I say supposed to be because this is what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be making sure all the employees came with face masks, stayed 6 feet back, and to make sure, I think they were doing temperature checks. They were doing that in the beginning, and they stopped that. And around April the 15th, Jeff Bezos announced that he would be starting his own safety COVID testing. We were in a warehouse. We heard it. As a matter of fact, me and her were talking about it. I worked the first shift, and she came in on the shift. She came in on the middle of my shift. So we were talking about it. No one ever thought at the warehouse, and we never thought that in a million years that Jeff Bezos would be allowing Amazon employees to COVID test each other. My sister was trained by another Amazon employee to stick a Q-tip swab up Amazon employee's nose and COVID test them. My sister was COVID testing illegally with no proper PPE, with not even no vaccination out in 2020.
Let me
Um,
ask really quick, Tina, just so people are aware, what Amazon location was this?
this was the DDC3 location in Springfield, Virginia, in Northern Virginia.
I
Mhm.
asked that question because some people hearing this, if this is their first time hearing the story, they may assume it was the same warehouse that Chris Smalls was working at. It's not.
No,
So I
it's
want people to understand this is happening because Chris Smalls complained about the same, similar situations that happened during the pandemic. So I want people to understand that this was happening at, it's not just Chris Smalls' warehouse where they were having these issues.
mhm. And I speak to Chris every other day, at least twice a week. And the only difference between him and my sister is that my sister complained and she's no longer here. He complained, they complained for the same thing. And you see where he is. That's the only difference between him and her. Um, my sister COVID tests anywhere between 3 to 4 people on a daily basis from Sunday to Thursday at Amazon. From 9 a.m. to 6:30 was her shift. Um, no one knew anything about COVID. All we knew was that it kills you. That's all we knew. Um, this was 2020. The first vaccination didn't even come out. First vaccine didn't even come out until December 14th. And I know people say, well, you could COVID test yourself. Well, no, you couldn't COVID test yourself. They didn't have self
Right.
COVID testing until 2021. And let's make this clear. She was COVID testing illegally inside of a warehouse right next to a break room with no proper PPE. She was not a doctor. She was not a nurse. She
Right.
was
And
not.
this is not the position she was hired to do either.
Absolutely not.
Right.
She was not a medical profession. She did not sign up to work in a hospital. She was not an RN, a LPN, a CNA. She was nothing. She was none of that. She had no medical background at all, besides being trained by another employee to stick a swab up your nose and test for COVID. No one knew anything about anything. Testing inside a building with a regular mask on, no N93 mask, no nothing. Um, and January, I remember like it was, I blocked a lot of things out, but my sister's anniversary was just last Sunday. And we were at Jeff Bezos' mansion, his 28-bedroom mansion in DC. And the president, Chris Smalls, and Derek Palmer came down. And we had another organizations, not Muslims Against Amazon, and not for us, just against Amazon, were there. And we had a lot of other people. It was a pretty good sized crowd, and everyone spoke. And I remember January 6th, they had the riots in DC, the Capitol Hill. They were taking over January 6th, 2021. And I remember that day, my sister was sick. She had no more PTO. And I told her, she was actually sick before that. She was complaining she wasn't feeling well. And I told her, I said, listen, they're closing everything down because the governor put a curfew in for January 6th because of the foolishness that was going on in DC. And I said, you should leave. And she said, no. I remember being on hold with her and seeing if she could leave early. And I remember the supervisor she asked that told her no. And my sister came home on January 7th, was not feeling well, and went to sleep and did not wake back up. The day before my sister died, I know for a fact she tested about 3 people, never knowing if anyone had COVID or not, because she did not get that information. They didn't get that information. It went to the employee's email or A to Z, their text message through Amazon. So I know a lot of people say, well, you can self-test yourself, but you can self-test yourself. That didn't come out until 2021, and you can self-test yourself in your house. At no
Right.
way, shape, or form is somebody to be working at let's say Taco Bell, and they're in there testing other people. No one, that is not allowed. It wasn't allowed then, and it wasn't allowed then. And I don't know anywhere from the CDC update that they are allowing people, regular people that have no medical profession, to COVID test anyone.
No, and for people who are not aware, I was still working at Boston University at that time, and even at BU, through all its faults, even
Mhm.
at BU, they actually hired people to do that job. So it
Absolutely.
wasn't like those of us who were employees there, like we weren't given that job. Outside
Absolutely.
of, we had our regular responsibilities, but they weren't like, okay, you guys now have to do this job. There were people that were hired specifically just to do that.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when you are $1 trillion company and you're
Mhm.
making thirteen billion dollars a day, and you're the only thing that's open in a pandemic. So you're trying to save money, and you say, well, I got these people that work in this warehouse. I got a lot of warehouses. I'm worldwide. I'm Amazon. Let's try to save us some money and see how we can do this.
Yep.
So at this particular point, um, I don't know who authorized it. I don't care who authorized it. It doesn't matter to me at this point who authorized it. At the end of the day, you had an individual that came there to be a package handler, illegally COVID testing, and was against the federal rules of the United States of America. And I don't know what happened in any other country, but we are in America, and it was against the law. If I break the law, I'm going to be held responsible. Um, so this is where we are, and not to mention, it's just disgusting. Um, my sister has been gone for 2 years. We just did her 2 year anniversary, and just all the other things that are coming out about them, which I heard while I was there, but I don't, I don't, I don't, I don't even care who. I understand the safety and health chief coordinator was let go or stepped down in October. I think it was October. Um, she was let down, and I don't know who they're going to try to put it on, blame it on, but I don't care. My sister's not here. She's never coming back. She was working for your company, doing something she had no business doing with other employees, putting everyone in harm's way in the middle of a pandemic when no one knew anything about COVID, but it kills you. And I don't care who you fire. I don't care what you do. My sister's never coming back, and I'm going to get justice for my sister.
That's right. And for people who are not aware, see, this is when Chris Smalls first, started protesting against Amazon. Part of it was due to what was happening at Amazon, at least at his warehouse during the pandemic. There were other things that went along with this as well. But this was one of the complaints that he had, is the way the employees were treated during the pandemic. Same complaint of not having PPE, people coming to work sick, even though they knew that they had tested positive, like similar, situations. And that's one of the reasons that, like, Chris decided, you know what, I'm going to organize the workers and we're going to hit them back of this. But this is a company that is very wealthy. They could have afforded to, hire people
Absolutely.
just to do that.
Absolutely. How about a nurse or a doctor? How about somebody that's in the medical field? How about somebody that knows about the medical field, that knows that you need we're in the middle of a pandemic. You need more than a cloth mask that says Amazon on it to be
Mhm.
handling people that are coming to you with symptoms of COVID. Of I mean, about that's killing millions of people. Like, it's no more confusion for me. I understand what he was trying to do. I don't care. I don't care. I miss my sister. It's not a second that doesn't go by. I don't think of her. He has
Mm.
disrespected my family. He has disrespected my niece. I want justice for my sister because he knows what he did was wrong. And I don't care if it was supposed to be for a little while, if it was supposed to be for whatever. I don't care. I don't care.
100%. Now there has been an update since I spoke with you last time. It appears you are taking this to court. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can answer. I'll answer the things that I can answer. We are in court. And we're going to get justice. Um, it's only so much getting over and getting under a person can do. And I don't. My heart goes out. I understand. Last week, I was called and told there was a gentleman who complained of his chest hurting. He needed to get off the line. He passed out and had a heart attack. and they put boxes and crates around him and had other workers keep on working so that they wouldn't see him, to deter them, to stop them from working. And the workers were saying, you know, that's not fair. Close the warehouse. Let this man have some respect for him. I hope everybody does what they have to do if one of their loved ones has been an injustice, but I'm going to do whatever I have to do to get justice for my sister. Absolutely. Because it's not okay. It's not right. And I don't play those games. I'm not going to play those games. You were in the wrong. And if I break the law, I'm going to go to jail for it. I'm going to go to jail for it. I'm going to have to answer to somebody. I want justice for my sister. So yes, we are in court now, and justice is on the way. It absolutely is. But beside all the games, the fuckery, the bullshit, we're getting justice.
Do you have what I'm going to ask this question. Let me know if you can answer it or not. But
Okay.
Is there any type of push for a class action lawsuit against Amazon?
I know that Amazon already has a class action lawsuit against them. Now, I don't know that is not in this case. I'm not quite sure. When I check in and I get people email me and text me all types of stuff. I know that there were a lot of Amazon workers that died of COVID, but I know that my sister was the only Amazon worker that was illegally COVID testing. And that is against the law. That is against the CDC and the federal law. That is against the law. If I were to go pose and be a doctor, I'm going to get locked up for that because I'm not a doctor. If I were to pose and be, what do I say? If I'm going to do something that's not in my profession that I don't have a degree with, I'm going to go to jail for that. No one's not going to, that's against the law. That is against the law. He knows that. And I understand the way that they may be trying to play it by firing and this and that. I don't care. When my sister was COVID testing illegally, it was against the law then in 2020, and it's against the law now. It's against the law.
What was the response from management or from the supervisors at that time? What was their reasoning for doing it this way?
I'm not quite sure what their reason was. I thought you were going to ask what was the reason when she complained she was sick, she couldn't go home. She didn't have any more PTO.
Right.
For people have to take points. But as far as management, I'm not sure. I can just, and I can't say on here, but I just know who instructed her, which was in a management position, instructed her and demonstrated how to do the swabs of the nose.
Does the manager have a medical background of any sort to your awareness? Yeah.
No. And I mean, you're at Amazon and you're working at Amazon and you have a badge on that says Amazon, and we're not at the emergency room. We're not at a doctor's office. We were at Amazon. And we were at Amazon when the illegal COVID test was happening, and when she was trained by another Amazon employee of management to swab nose from here to there, put here at the box, they'll come, all of these things. We were at Amazon. We weren't in a hospital. We weren't even outside, Sabrina. We weren't even outside. We were in a warehouse right next to the break room, which is the lunchroom.
This is crazy. Like, for people who don't know, for those of you that I guess weren't coming in to work during the pandemic, or at least during the height of the pandemic. I know some people were working from home, but this is not the way that it was handled at other businesses that I know of. So this is just, it's absolutely ridiculous. I'm curious, after your sister passed away, did Amazon offer any type of compensation? Like, did they offer to pay for funeral expenses or anything to help the family?
Amazon did offer for 6 weeks of counseling, and they called in February after it made the media, some small medias. They called in February and they offered us 6 weeks of counseling, and they said that we should take it because it'll expire the second week of April, and we didn't take it. We didn't take it.
Yeah, I mean, and no offense to counseling, but I mean, counseling doesn't.
Yeah, we have been in counseling, but um I don't know what they were thinking, because this is still then and now. They had the money to hire nurses and doctors. They could have had someone
Mhm.
come with a trailer outside and COVID test every other day. They could have had COVID testing 4 hours a day. Somebody of a licensed professional. They had other employees COVID testing to save money. This was what
Yep.
he did to save money. So we're going to see how this works out for him to save money. It's because this is what he did to save money. And my sister's no longer here. And it's nothing he can do to bring her back. Nothing. Nothing at all.
No.
She's not coming back. Um,
So they didn't even offer to pay for any expenses?
No, they didn't offer to pay. And when the employees were complaining in the warehouse and trying to demand justice, because the position came available right away, they stopped it, I believe, a month after my sister died. But I want to say 3.5 weeks a month. They stopped COVID testing altogether. Um, they were upset because they didn't want my sister, they didn't want people talking about what they were going to do, because the other workers were pressuring them, like, okay, they need money for funeral, they need money for this, they need money for that. They were upset, and I heard that they took down the signs for the GoFundMe. Yeah.
Oh my God. Did they hire someone else to replace your sister and put someone else?
I don't think that they filled the position. I think that it stopped about 3.5 weeks after that. I think it stopped. They asked me to come back to work in April, and I said no, and they fired me.
So who was testing people after that, or were they not doing that anymore?
I don't think they were doing it anymore. I think that it was a lot of, it was a lot of talk, and I have, it was a lot of talk, but I think that they stopped it around. I know they stopped it. I want to say, I don't know if it went 3 weeks or 4 weeks, but I know it was stopped after that. But it was still open. It was still open. So
This is it. This kind of stuff. It
yeah,
sets my
I
hair
mean,
on fire.
it
Like it makes me
happens.
so angry.
It happens every day, Sabrina. Because how many times have someone think, and in corporate America, has an employee made someone or instructed or directed someone to do something that they did not know how to do, they weren't qualified for or certified for. They do that to save money. They do that
Every
to save
time.
money. I remember coming out of a store last week, and it was a teenager, and she looked like she had to be no more than 16 years old. They had her close the store. And I remember that I thought that teenagers couldn't close the store by themselves.
Nope.
They had to be there with an adult, and she was overwhelmed. Her mother was very upset. Her mother was like, I'll call the manager. But there are certain things that people will have you do, employees will have you do, and they get away with it every single day. There's somebody right now and that will wake up tomorrow when they go to work, and their employee will tell them to do something, and they have no business doing it, and they're going to do it because they don't want to lose their job.
That's
It
right.
happens every single day. Every single day. Well, if you don't do it, we'll get somebody that does, or we'll get somebody that will, and then you're fired. People have families. People are single parents. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
this is late stage capitalism, you guys. This is late stage.
absolutely,
I can go to the Chipotle down the street and around the corner. Why are teenagers in there closing the store?
yeah. It's
Teenagers
very
are not supposed to, for people who are not aware, like they're not supposed to be closing the
no.
store by themselves. There has to be an
Yes,
adult present. But employers,
absolutely.
they're getting away with all kind of stuff. It's ridiculous. I do want to share this, Tina, for people who want to help. There is a GoFundMe for Tina's sister. And please, if you can, to donate. Eric, if you can put the link to this in the chat so people can contribute, so they can donate here.
And we're also I'm gonna send it to you. Hopefully I'll have it to you by the end of the week. We're coming out with a petition, so everyone can go to sign a petition. Because this has to stop. And not only does it have to stop, there should never be any more Pouchon Browns. Nobody should ever feel like they have to do something that they know that they're not supposed to be doing in order to keep a
Mm-hmm.
job. No employee should ever force or put someone in a position to do something that they have no business doing. It happens every single day. It's going to
Yes.
happen tomorrow. It's going to happen the next day, and the next day.
Yes, yes. It's been going on for a long time. It's become more transparent since the pandemic
Absolutely.
started. But this kind of thing's been going on for a while and for people who may come in and say, well, why would someone do something that wasn't a part of their job?
Oh, hold on, wait, Sabrina. If somebody asks you that in the comments or after this interview, you tell them this. Stop blaming the victim. My sister is no longer here. She cannot speak for herself. Y'all got any questions? Y'all can email me. Y'all can email me. I'm not hard to find. But what we're not going to do is we're not going to blame the victim. We're going to blame somebody who makes $13 billion a day, and we're going to ask him why you did not have a nurse or doctor coming here to COVID test when you knew that it was against the law, not the state law. I'm talking about the federal law. If you go into the airport with a gun right now and you think you're going to get on a plane and you don't have, you going to jail. You going to jail or you going to jail?
That's right. That's right.
So what
People
I'm saying
shouldn't
is
be employees should not be held hostage by their supervisors or by CEOs. And that's been going on for a long time, where people feel like if I don't do everything they tell me to do, I'm going to lose my job. Then you have to look for another job. And then what if you have a family? What if you have kids? Well, you have other people that you have to feed. And that's what people don't understand. And I think a lot of times when you look at like the class system in this country, that's something that like people wealthy, they don't get that. They don't understand.
They don't. He does not know. He does not know how hard my sister worked for his company. He has no clue. And I'm going to tell you something, Sabrina. My sister died on Friday. She died on a Friday. She was supposed to go to return on work on Sunday. They called me Sunday evening and asked why my sister didn't come to work. They said it's not like her to miss a day because she never missed a day. I said, well, I called and told you on Friday that my sister passed, didn't I? They said, oh, no, we didn't get the message. So I'm telling you this is that this can never happen again. This can never, ever happen again. It could never happen again. I don't know what he was thinking in the middle of a pandemic. People weren't going to work. People were losing. Like, I don't think people remember. People were scared to go to the hospital when they were sick is because they knew if they would go to the hospital, their family couldn't come. They were scared of dying alone. So people were going to sleep and not waking back up. I don't think people remember the long lines in 2020, but you had to wait 8 hours, 6 hours. You had to go to different cities, different counties to get COVID tested. I don't think people understand that this man who was one of the richest men in the world, and I don't want to like about his money, but you should have known better. You should have known better. You should have known better. So at the end of the day, he had all the resources to bring in nurses and doctors, and he did not do that. He did not do that. And a life is gone because of that. And it's my sister's life. And I'm never, ever going to see her again. And I'm going to get justice for her. I'm going to get justice because, I pray that, no one else is harmed or hurt from Amazon. But I just know for me and for my family, nah, I'm not going to sit back and be quiet. I can't sit back and be quiet. My sister was everything. I spoke to her 20 times a day. And you can say whatever you want to say. I work there. It's not hearsay. I work there. So I already know the games, the stunts, whatever. You got the right one. You got the right one. You do.
And you have to keep fighting for your sister, because some people, if this situation had happened to them, they would just say, this sucks, but this is just, what am I supposed to do? And like, one thing I think I appreciate people like you and Chris and Jay is like, you guys did not give up. I was asking Jay this Friday. I said, how did you stay motivated all this time? Like, how did you keep fighting? Because I've talked to other people that have come on here that have talked about their experiences at Starbucks and Chipotle and all these other different employers and the way that they're being treated. And some of them gave up and some of them didn't. And so I had to ask Jay, like, how did you stay motivated? He was like, no, we just, if we would have given up, we would have let down so many other people. So I want people to understand that Tina fighting for her sister, she's not just fighting for her sister, she's also fighting for the fact that hopefully this never happens to another Amazon employee again.
It could never happen. And this is the thing about it is that, me and my sister were very close. We spoke 20 times a day. I knew everything about her. She was my baby sister. You know, I remember us and, you know, my mom doing our hair together, us in the bathtub together, going to school, riding the bus together, sitting by each other. Every time we saw each other in school when we were elementary school, we would hug each other, play on the playground. You know, I have her daughter, and there's no stopping in me. There's no stopping in me to my last breath. And when my breath goes, there's life after this. I'm still going to fight. I'm always going to advocate for my sister. I did in the living, and I'm surely going to do it in the dead. And I know what I know. I know what I know. And even people who say, oh, you know, this is going to be that. You don't have to believe in me. You don't have to believe in me, because I believe in myself. I believe in me. I know what I know. And I know I'm going to get justice for my sister. I know that. I tell the people, if you want to report on a story, report on the story. I don't care what your personal opinion is. I don't give a rat's ass, because at the end of the day, you need to address that towards Jeff Bezos, because he's the one who's so smart. He's the one who has $1 trillion company that allow regular employees to come in there and illegally COVID test. COVID test. So whoever has anything to say, I don't give a damn. I don't give a damn. I know what I know, and I know I'm going to get justice for my sister, and I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to stop. It's no stopping me.
There's
no stopping me.
There's no excuse for someone that has a company that's worth that much money. There's just no excuse here, and nobody should be treated that way. But Tina, I do want to share this just one more time for those just tuning in. There is a GoFundMe to please help if you can. Justice for Pushawn Brown. That was Tina's sister. Please donate here if you can to really help the family, because Amazon is not providing any type of compensation for the family, and we need to get some help going that way. But Tina, thank you so much for coming on again and sharing this story again, but also giving the update that's happening as well. Thank you so much. And Eric, if we could put that that link in the chat one more time for people.
Thank you, Sabrina. I'm gonna send. There's gonna be something in the next couple of days. The petition coming out. Everyone can sign a petition, because this should never happen again. And you know what, Sabrina, I'm gonna tell you this real quick. I know we gotta go. Whether he is worth $1,000, whether he's worth 100 trillion, it was his business. He needs to be responsible for what happens in his place of establishment. That's his business.
That's right.
So it doesn't matter how much money he's worth, because I know some people say, oh, she just wants this, she wants that. I want justice for my sister, because can no one say anything to me, because that's my sister. And I have to take care of my needs. And they don't know how I feel about my sister. And if it was your family member, how would you feel if somebody wronged them and went on about their business in the middle of a pandemic, when they knew better, when they had the means to do better, when they were supposed to? They were pretty much the only place open. He did it to save money. And I hope, and I want to see at the end how this saving money is going to work out for him. So it doesn't matter if he was worth $5 or $500 billion. He has to be responsible for what happens in his company. And he had my sister in there, whether he knew or did not know, illegally COVID testing. He signed her checks. He signed our checks. And it's Jeff Bezos. I don't care who the CEO is. It's Amazon. You are there. So whoever's going to take for it, I don't care. Justice, I want it. I want it. I want it now.
That's right. Tina, please keep me posted.
I will.
You have my number and everything.
Yes,
keep me posted.
I do.
Any new information that comes up, just send it my way. But
I'll tell you as much as I can tell you. You know, this whole thing is tricky. So I'll tell you as much as I can tell you. But thank you so much, Sabrina. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Tina.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, guys, what do we say, right? We live in a corrupt capitalist system. We are in the end stage of capitalism, and you see the kind of things that are happening, right? How is it someone who's worth so much money, one of the richest men in the world, someone who has a company that is the largest company in the United States? I think Walmart's second now. How is it he couldn't afford to hire people who were qualified to do that job? He could. He chose not to. These are the people we really have to focus on. These are the people We talk about politicians, but at the end of the day, even the politicians are controlled by the oligarchy. The Oracle at Delphi says, and why didn't Amazon have a supervisor or a manager to do the testing? Because the PMC always spares itself the risk of exposure every damn time. Every damn time. You never see them out there doing the brunt work. And thank you for the super chat, Colin. Appreciate you having Tina on. Thanks so much, Colin. Okay. Let's go ahead and give shout outs to patrons. And I really do hope that Tina gets justice for her sister, because here's the thing. It's not just about one person. You know, this has to be brought to the masses. More people need to know about this so that it doesn't happen again. Next time, it may not be Amazon. It could be Walmart, right? It could be another company. So more people do need to know about this. All right. I want to go ahead and we're going to shout out patrons, and then we're going to get into a couple other news stories. We do have call-in tonight, so definitely tune in for that. Shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you so much for your support. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories: members, Sabbies, Sabsters, Sabinators, and of course, the ultimate. All of their names are listed here. You can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there as well. And I told you guys this before, I got to get a better layout for this, but I'll figure that out someday. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it, because again, like I always say, you do keep the light on around here. Like literally all 3 of these lights around me. 4 if we count that one. One day I'm going to take a picture of my setup and I'm going to show it to you guys on stream. And if any of you have any better suggestions, please let me know. We'll do that one night. Maybe we'll do that Friday night. I think you guys will laugh if you see how what my setup looks like. You're probably going to be like, how the hell can she even see? But yeah. All right. So what else are we going to talk about tonight? Let's go ahead and share that thumbnail for you guys. Hit the thumbs. Hit the thumbs. All right. Tonight we are discussing Max Blumenthal, Matt Taibbi, and Aaron Mate explore the files. If you have not seen that interview, there's actually 3 parts I want to discuss from that interview that the Gray Zone had with Matt Taibbi about the Twitter files. If you haven't seen it, you're going to find out some things here tonight, because some of your questions that you may have had may be answered tonight. I'm also going to discuss Hakeem Jeffries promotes anti-choice judge. And he's not just anti-choice. There's some other problems with this gentleman that he wants to promote here. So we're going to get into all of that. We're also going to talk about Kathy Hochul's involvement in this as well. We just spoke to Tina Brown for Justice for Brown. And I'm also going to discuss Illinois, Kentucky, and Kansas. Ballot initiative wins. Now, there are 3 states on there tonight because these states don't have many. I think one of these states only has 1. So there are very few. So we're going to actually go ahead and start off with those ballot initiatives. We've been covering these. We're going through the alphabet, and we have now reached the end of the I's and the beginning of the K's. We're going to go ahead and bring it in with Illinois. Let's see how ballot initiatives work in Illinois and what ballot measures they've had this time around. Illinois. Citizens of Illinois may only initiate constitutional amendments through the process of direct initiative, meaning successful petition drives bypass Illinois legislature and go directly on the ballot for voters to vote on for ratification to their constitution. Easier process than my state, Massachusetts. Citizens may not initiate state statutes or veto referendums. The Illinois General Assembly may place legislatively referred constitutional amendments on the ballot with a 3/5 majority vote of each chamber for voters to ratify. So this piece here is important. The number required. In Illinois, The signature requirement for initiated constitutional amendments is 8% of the total votes cast for governor in the preceding gubernatorial election. So Roger Meadows put that for me there in red. So that's important. And we're going to go ahead and get into the initiative for Illinois. So Illinois, I believe, only had one. This one's interesting. Speaking of workers, Illinois Amendment 1, the right to collective bargaining measure. A yes vote supported amending the Illinois Constitution to state that employees have a fundamental right to organize and bargain collectively through representatives of their own choosing for the purpose of negotiating wages, hours, and working conditions, and to protect their economic welfare and safety at work. And 2, prohibit any law that interferes with or negates or diminishes the right of employees to organize and bargain collectively. As you can imagine, this one passed. It passed by 58.72%. Now, I'm surprised it didn't have a higher percentage than that, but it did pass. Who supported it? Governor Pritzker, Senator Ram Villalobos, State Representative Marcus Evans, and State Representative Lance Yednock. If any of you in the chat live in Illinois, let me know. Okay. There were some unions that supported this as well. The Associated Firefighters of Illinois, Chicago Laborers District Council, Chicago Teachers Union, Illinois AFL-CIO, Illinois Federation of Teachers, Illinois Pipe Trades Association, and SEIU Healthcare Illinois and Indiana. Interesting. They brought Indiana in there too as well. And I wanted to show you who opposed it. Who opposed it? State Representative Blaine Wilher. Political parties that opposed it: Republican Party of Illinois. Here are some of the organizations that opposed it: Americans for Tax Reform, Illinois Association of School Boards, Illinois Chamber of Commerce, Illinois Manufacturers Association, Illinois Policy Institute, and National Federation of Independent Business. Individuals: this dude here, Richard Illine, CEO of Uline Corporation. So that one did pass. And Roger Meadows put something here that I thought was interesting. It says in Illinois, CBIs must pass by 60% of those voting on the initiative, yet this passed by less than 60%. The other part says it can also pass by a majority of those who cast a ballot for any office in that election. So I figure this is why it passed without needing the 60%, but I still don't know what that means. I called up almost every Illinois government office that they referred me to, and they kept referring me to another office, one after another after another. If there is anyone from Illinois who knows what this means, please tell me so I can update my notes. So that's a note from Roger there. And I believe we did have some Illinois people: Jay Tolbert, Illinois, in the house, and Lawrence Johnson, Illinois, in the house. Recliner Mike says Illinois is greatly propagandized. We voted down tax reform amendment. Interesting. Too bad we don't have Kit here to talk about this one as well. So that is Illinois. Now let's check out Kentucky and Kansas. Now, these are interesting. We're going to start off with Kansas. Kansas is not a citizen ballot initiative state. This one's important. Laws are passed the traditional way via the legislature, and amendments are referred to voters by what the legislature, via a legislative referred constitutional amendment, put before the voters to ratify. So just keep that in mind. It's different in Kansas. This is the biggest one. Kansas, no state constitutional right to abortion and legislative power to regulate abortion amendment. So I want to explain for a second. This provision is put in place to amend the Constitution that the state already has. Let's see what happened here. A yes vote supported amending the Kansas Constitution to state that nothing in the state constitution creates a right to abortion or requires government funding for abortion, and state that the legislature has the authority to pass laws regarding abortion. This initiative failed by 58.97%. Now, when I say failed, you have to think the opposite with this one. It's tricky. It failed, but it's a good thing it failed. Let me explain why. These can be tricky if you don't read into them. What you have to pay attention to here is that a yes vote supported amending the Kansas Constitution to state that nothing in the state constitution creates a right to abortion or requires government funding for abortion. So a yes vote for this measure actually would be bad if you are pro-choice. Just wanted to explain that because I don't want people to get confused and they'll be like, oh, it failed and da 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 da. So that's a good thing that that one failed. Who supported it? Senator Roger Marshall, Senator Molly Baumgardner, Senator Renee Erickson, Senator Ty Masterson, and Senator Kelly Warren. Some former officials are listed there as well. To show you who supported it, you can understand how this went. Lieutenant Governor of Kansas, Jeff Collier, Governor of Arkansas, Mike Huckabee. So we know Mike Huckabee is not for a woman's right to choose. So again, it's a good thing that this initiative failed. Just want to reiterate that. And U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, of course, also supported this initiative here. Organizations that were supported it as well. Democrats for Life of America. What the hell is that? What is that? This whole Democrat thing, Democrats trying to be pro-life is crazy to me. Family Policy Alliance in Kansas, Kansians for Life, and Kansas Catholic Conference. Individuals, Joseph Newman, Kansas City Archbishop. Okay, and who opposed it? As you can imagine, most of the Democrats. Elizabeth Warren, Pelosi's here, Sharice Davis, Laura Kelly, Dinah Sykes, Christina Haswood, Lindsey Vaughn, Quentin Lucas, officials Joe Koistein and Nancy Lusk, organizations, America Civil Liberties Union of Kansas, Kansas Abortion Fund, Mainstream Coalition, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, Planned Parenthood is one as well. This is something, again, that Roger pointed out, very slick to put it to the ballot in August. This is an admission of their unpop policy. Yeah, you have to understand what was going on at that time. This was right before the midterms as well. So just keep that in mind. And then another thing here that I think is important, Value Them Both PAC was registered in support of the amendment. The committee reported over $8 million in contributions. Kansians for Constitutional Freedom was registered in opposition to the amendment. The committee reported over $11.4 million in contributions. Just imagine what that money could have done for people in this country. All these millions and millions of dollars that we just put towards like political tasks. This is really interesting to me. The next initiative for Kansas is Kansas Constitutional Amendment 1, Legislative Veto or Suspension of Executive Agency Regulations Amendment. A yes vote supported this constitutional amendment to allow the state legislature to pass laws by a simple majority vote to revoke or suspend rules and regulations adopted by executive agencies or officers. This was defeated. It failed by 50.45%. And let me go on here. Who supported it? Attorney General Derek Schmidt. Some of the unions that supported it: Kansas Agribusiness Retailers Association, Kansas Bankers Association, the Cooperative Council, Grain and Feed Association, Livestock Association, and Renew Kansas Biofuels Association. Organizations: Americans for Prosperity, Kansas Chamber United for Business. They're on here twice for some reason. And who opposed it? Governor Laura Kelly and State Senator Dinah Sykes. Organizations who opposed it: Kansas Sierra Club. So, yeah. Another note here from Roger Meadows: I'm surprised unions were in support of this amendment, seeing that there is also a such thing as workplace regulation. Yeah. Again, I think that goes back to the propaganda, to be honest. Like, how was this mentioned to people? You know? Okay. And this amendment for Kansas, this one passed. Kansas Constitutional Amendment 2, County Sheriff Election and Recall Amendment. Whoa. A yes vote supported amending the state constitution to require the election of county sheriffs in counties that had not been abolished. I'm sorry, this is funny. That had not abolished the office as of January 2022, and provide that sheriffs may be recalled from office or removed by a writ of quo warranto initiated by the Attorney General. This amendment would preserve the right of citizens of each county that elected a county sheriff as of January 11, 2022, to continue electing the county sheriff. The amendment would also provide that a county sheriff only may be involuntarily removed from office pursuant to either a recall election or a writ of quo warranto initiated by the Attorney General. So this initiative passed by 61.66%. Interesting. Who supported it? Mainly the Republican politicians: Kenneth Collins, John Ressman, Eric Smith, Douglas County Sheriff Jay Armbrister. That's an interesting last name. And Kansas Attorney General Derek Schmidt. Unions that were supported it as well: Kansas Sheriff's Association, organizations, Johnson County Sheriff's Office. Opponents who opposed this bad boy: Sidney Carlin, Mike Dodson, and Dennis Heiberger. Interesting. Mike is a Republican, but he sided with the Democrats on that one. Organizations: American Civil Liberties Union of Kansas, and individuals: Kurt Muldrup, director of the Riley County Police Department. Okay, now we are moving on to the Blue Hills of Kentucky. In Kentucky, it is not a citizen BI state. Laws are passed the traditional way via the legislature, and amendments are referred to voters by what the legislator via a legislative referred constitutional amendment would like the voters to ratify. So the first one, Kentucky Constitutional Amendment 1, changes to legislative session end dates and special session measures. This failed by 53.55%. Let's go on. So it says again, this measure was defeated. The amendment was designed to remove specific legislative session end dates from the Constitution and provide instead that odd year sessions are limited to 30 legislative days and even year sessions are limited to 60 legislative days. The amendment would have allowed the state legislature to set the legislative end date by statute or joint resolution, and to change the end date of the legislative session through a 3/5 vote in each chamber. It would also have allowed the House Speaker and the Senate President to jointly call a special legislative session for up to 12 days. In 2022, Kentucky was one of 14 states in which only the governor could call a special session. The measure also would have added that laws, except general appropriations, would have taken effect on July 1st in the year the act was passed, or 90 days after it was approved, whichever was later. So that's Kentucky. And quick note here from Roger as well. Although it passed in Idaho, it failed here. It also failed in Arkansas. In 2022, again, Kentucky is one of 14 states in which only the governor could call a special session. So hopefully you learned something new here tonight. Who opposed that? Governor Andy Beshear, organizations, Kentucky Conservation Committee, League of Women Voters of Kentucky. Another note here from Roger, I would assume that if the legislator is of your party, you might want them working more to pass what you like. But if they are not, I would imagine you want them working as less as possible to not do damage. Abolish all parties. And I think this is the last one here for Kentucky. This is also in reference to a woman's right to choose. Kentucky Constitutional Amendment number 2, no right to abortion in constitutional amendment. A yes vote supported amending the Kentucky Constitution to state that nothing in the state constitution creates a right to abortion or requires the government funding for abortion. This measure was defeated, just like it failed in Kansas back in the summer. Constitutional 2 amendment would have amended the Bill of Rights of the Kentucky Constitution to state that nothing in the state constitution protects or secures a right to abortion or requires the funding of abortion. So again, this measure failed by 52.35%. But similar to this measure with Kansas, you have to read it carefully, because just because it failed doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. Because it failed is actually a good thing. And you can tell that by the supporters. Who supported it? All of the Republican representatives. Robbie Mills, Joseph Fisher, Nancy Tate, Michael Adams, Allison Ball, Daniel Cameron, Mike Harmon, Ryan Corliss. Former officials, Adiel Wuchner, organizations, Catholic Conference of Kentucky, et cetera, et cetera. So this constitutional amendment, no right to abortion in constitutional amendment. I don't know why they say it that way. No right to abortion in constitutional amendment in Kentucky failed, but it's good that it failed. If it would have passed, then you would not have a right to an abortion in Kentucky. So hopefully, guys, you have learned something new tonight. I hope you're learning something to go along with these ballot initiatives that we're running through. There's so many of them. Louisiana will be next. That one is going to take a couple of days because they have over 11. I'm not kidding. I'm not exaggerating. They have over 11. All right, Eric, let's go to those comments on Rockfin, and then we'll get to our next story. What did I do here? Okay. Thank you so much for the tip on Rockfin. Roger, every day, one of my 4 core political beliefs keeps getting reinforced. Either it's 1, we need public banks to flatten Wall Street to tamp down on speculation. 2, we need more CBI states allowing voters to amend their state constitutions. 3, we need to abolish all political parties. And in this case, 4, we need more worker co-ops to replace corporations. A megalodon? Prehistoric great white shark can't fight off a million piranha. I don't even know what that is, but thanks so much. Thanks so much for that. Okay. That was a lot there. We are moving on to our next story here. If you have not had a chance to see this interview, you're going to see 3 parts of it tonight. There's 3 pieces here that I want to show you. So the Gray Zone interviewed Matt Taibbi Obviously, they talked to him about the Twitter files. That's the hot topic right now with Matt Taibbi. And there were a couple of things that they mentioned here that I think would be good for you to know. I've gotten questions from you guys. It's really interesting. Like, people have asked me these questions and I'm like, I really don't know that. I don't know myself. But one of the questions that you guys have either emailed me or DM'd me asking me about this particular project here that Matt Taibbi and a couple other journalists have been working on as well is, what exactly was the process? How were people chosen? What is it like working with Elon Musk? What were some of the other things that they found? So Matt Taibbi actually did answer some of these questions in this interview. I do feel like, and I've seen other interviews with him about this issue, but I feel like this particular interview went a little bit further. This interview was over an hour and 30 minutes long. So they did talk about more here. So let's go ahead and get into it. So first up, what was the process in reference to the Twitter files? How were people selected? These types of questions that you guys have been asking, he's going to answer those. So let's go ahead and get into it.
About the process by which you got these files and how you go about collating them and determining, first of all, what to ask for, what to look for, and what to report.
So without talking out of school too much about some of the arrangements that I might have had in terms of like attribution and that sort of thing. I didn't go to them. I was approached, by Twitter, and I was the first person. And the original idea was just to open up everything that was at Twitter. The original story was going to be about the release of the blocking of the Hunter Biden story. Now, here's.
So let's just pause there for a second and let's just interject there. So that piece is important. He didn't contact them. They contacted him. The original first piece was going to be the Hunter Biden story. So let's just keep that all in mind, especially when people say that PR stunt that went around. Oh my God, look at Matt Taibbi doing PR for the richest man in the world. Like, that was ridiculous. But listen to this as well.
Where I should talk about, I guess my thought going into this whole process was, wouldn't it be fascinating to find out what kind of a relationship companies like Twitter might have with, the federal government, if they are told by the White House to or by the FBI to lay off stories. It would be great if we could learn that. And so yeah. I picked the Hunter Biden story thinking that that's where we might see it. If it existed. It turned out it wasn't in that first batch. And that was maybe because, as we subsequently found out, that batch was being reviewed by the Deputy General Counsel and former FBI General Counsel Jim Baker, plus an outside law firm. And once those folks exited the scene, then we had a new regime that involved basically there were some other reporters involved by then, and we would send out requests to an offsite attorney in the company, and then they would turn over those requests fairly quickly. So we can't say with absolute certainty what we're getting, what we're not getting, but what I would say is my instinct is that they're turning this stuff over so fast that they couldn't possibly be collating it that much or that intently.
Why is that piece important? The turnaround time. The faster the documents are turned over to Matt Taibbi and the other journalists that are involved in this as well, the less time they have to doctor any of these items, the less time they have to, let's go ahead and remove a couple of emails. Let's remove a couple of documents. Let's not show them that part. So the turnaround time, the fact that it was a fast turnaround time, that's important. So I wanted you guys to hear that from people saying, oh, they just selectively chose certain things, or how do we know that what they gave them was true? think about what he said about how fast the turnaround time was.
Okay. Aaron,
But-
feel free to jump in.
Yeah, and just quickly on that, like these would be the way we would do it would be like a very broad search request. We would identify 4 or 5 executives we thought were important executives, and then we would ask for search terms like, Russia or Julian Assange, things like that, right? Like
Yeah.
we would see what would come up, and then sometimes if something came up, we would ask to follow up on that.
Search terms, that piece is important as well. So that answers the Julian Assange question. I think I've seen him ask, someone else asked him this question before about did anything come up in reference to that. So far it hasn't, but the search term piece is important. That's how they were able to get the information that they got. So let's go on.
And was anything off limits? And also people in the chat are a number of commenters are asking if there's a way to release the source material the way WikiLeaks did.
That's been discussed. I'm sure that's a possible ending to this whole thing. I think the concern from the company's point of view is that they still inherit the liability of the old company. So the lawyers in this situation, I don't feel for them. They're in a very difficult spot because they've essentially been instructed to do everything that they've spent their whole lives being told not to do, like, give important damning documents to journalists willy-nilly. And so that's possible, but I think that decision is a little bit above my pay grade, I think.
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reason that question was probably asked is about the original source is because, they're all journalists, and that is something that they do have to deal with is the original source, especially if you're writing an article, like you do have to do that. So sometimes people may ask, like, is there any way that people can find out who the original source was? So they have something to, something to back up their claim and say, well, yes, this is the source. But so far, it looks like not too certain about that.
So let's get into some of the latest threads, Matt, which have to do with Russiagate. And just to catch people up on the story so far, because Max and I covered this last week on our Gray Zone live stream of what's been revealed. The short story is basically the Twitter files reveal a lot of pressure on Twitter from Democratic Party operatives and U.S. intelligence officials to basically validate Russiagate, to come up with material that can justify the claims that Democrats and intelligence officials have been making that Russia is waging the sweeping social media influence operation. And the theme that comes back again and again and again is Twitter tries very, very hard to find something, to find these Russian bots, to find Russian actors being responsible for misinformation and for viral claims, but they just can't find anything. And that is very frustrating to the Democratic operatives and the intelligence officials that are putting pressure on them. So one of the latest threads you have is about this hashtag release the memo. And that had to do with basically back in 2018, you have some oversight being done by the House Intelligence Committee under the leadership of Devin Nunes. And they wrote a memo detailing serious abuses by the FBI in their surveillance warrant applications on Carter Page, who was a Trump campaign volunteer. And Nunes and Kash Patel, who was working for him, basically discovered that the FBI was lying to the FISA court. It was hiding the fact that the Steele dossier was funded by the Clinton campaign, even though it was citing the Steele dossier as its main source for wiretaps of a Trump campaign volunteer, Carter Page. It also was lying about the fact that it hadn't corroborated any of the information in the Steele dossier. And so Nunes wrote a very critical memo about that. And for that, he was pilloried by Democrats and the media. And there was a hashtag called Release the Memo, which was basically encouraging the release of the Nunes memo. And at the time, you had something called the Hamilton 68 dashboard, which Max wrote about. And Max, you can say more about this in a second. Basically saying that this Release the Memo hashtag and this criticism of the Steele dossier, that all this was really the work of these nefarious Russian actors. So you have now new information about how Twitter went and looked for some information to substantiate this and came up empty. So talk to us about what happened here, and if I've missed anything or got anything wrong, please feel free to correct me.
No, that's pretty much exactly right. And I think the really damning thing about this is that, you know, Twitter, for the most part, this was 2018, so they were already used to this cycle of being asked to verify claims of foreign interference.
I just have to chime in here really quick and remind you guys, don't forget to hit that smash that like button. One more thing I want to add in here too. I don't know if anyone has noticed this, but Jacobin has released a new article that says that Hillary Clinton lost in 2016. I mean, we know that, but at the same time, what they go on to say is that the whole Russiagate idea was that this was not real. That this had nothing to do with it at all, and that she just legitimately actually lost. I don't think it's a coincidence that that article came out after the release of the Twitter files. So it's like, now that it's all out there, and like Matt Taibbi, they've done different segments of these Twitter files, different categories. One of the categories was Russiagate. And it was interesting to me that after that came out, then it was okay for Jacobin to write the article and say, oh yeah, by the way, Russiagate had nothing to do with Hillary Clinton. She just legitimately lost. Isn't that interesting? Funny how these things work out when people get that thumbs up, that okay.
But in this case, it wasn't even like, well, we only found a few. It was literally, we didn't find any. And there was there's an incredible quote in there, and if you give me a moment, I can find it. This is Yoel Roth, who is the head of trust and safety at Twitter, and basically kind of the chief censor, who, you know, had emerged as kind of a villain in this story because he was very aggressive in, you know, censoring a lot of conservative material. But here he looks at the stuff and he says, I just reviewed the accounts that posted the first 50 tweets with the hashtag release the memo, and none of them show any signs of affiliation to Russia. And he talks about how, I think we can push back very strongly on this. There's just one email after the other where they talk about how they're not only are they not finding much, they're not finding anything.
But they were pushed to find something, even though they weren't finding anything. This is the thing, when we went through all like the Twitter files and everything on here, I don't know how many of them I've done so far right now. Like, some have been done on RBN, some have been done here. I don't know how many I've done. But one of the things with this particular issue is, even though Twitter kept replying saying that we have not found anything or very little, they were still being pushed to come up with something. You know, isn't that crazy? This is how propaganda works. Like, no, you gotta find something so that we can scare the people. This is crazy. Now, that's that piece. Oh, let me finish this piece here, and then I'm gonna go second part.
They tell this to the staffers. They tell this to Dianne Feinstein staff. They tell this to Richard Blumenthal staff. They tell this to Adam Schiff staff. And it doesn't have any effect. They just go ahead and run with this. They publish public letters about Russian influence. And then there's just an army of private media organizations, none of whom responded to requests for comment, by the way.
And that's Dianne Feinstein. But only after Feinstein published her letter about Russian influence. So she was complicit too. One of the things I can say about these files that has been very revealing, again, some of us that are, content creators, commentators, etc., we had a feeling that this was happening with Twitter. They were suppressing certain voices, but we just didn't have actual evidence, right? Well, now we do, thanks to the Twitter files. But one of the things that was really disturbing to me was to see politicians be able to tell social media companies what they should and should not have on, certain accounts that should be removed. Adam Schiff was one of them. We talked about him recently as well. That is very disturbing. And it makes you wonder, what kind of United States do we actually live in? The fact that someone who's a politician can actually determine what is put out, what message is put out on a social media platform, whether you own the company or not. Just like that, they can come in and tell you to take it down. They can come in and tell you to remove certain accounts. This is another example to show you that it's not just mainstream media that is very much controlled. It's not just mainstream media that is heavily propagandized, but it's also social media. Because you see Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, what's the other one the kids like to do? Oh, the TikToks, whatever you want to call it. Like, all this stuff is controlled. There are certain narratives that they allow to get out, and there are certain narratives that they suppress. And usually, if it's being suppressed, it's something that they don't want the masses to hear, whether it's true or not. It's all controlled, all of it. Not just mainstream media, also social media. So hopefully this makes people much more aware. Now, there's another part I wanted to go to here because I had timestamps for this. Oh, 40, right. We're going to go over to the 40-minute mark right about here. Yeah.
But notice I think this meant a lot in the moment, because it told us they could get away with all kinds of stuff. And it also told us that the tech companies knew enough not to squawk publicly. So that, that was significant also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to another hilarious aspect of this whole. One of them, I would say, the most hilarious thread. And is this the one? Yeah,
this should be the one about Adam Schiff.
Right. Shifty Schiff. Adam Schiff. I mean, this is amazing. Okay, this is the beginning of the thread. Just Adam Schiff ban request. So basically, Adam Schiff's office was behind a lot of this. They were driving the Russiagate related social media censorship campaign and putting in requests for Twitter to ban certain accounts. Which account did they want to ban?
His own office, you guys. This is what I talked about on Sunday. Adam Schiff's own office, they were actually contacting Twitter and telling them to ban certain accounts. What kind of craziness is this? And he was also a big Russiagator. So you got to put the pieces, you got to line all these pieces up together. Line all of them up.
They revealed last week that they wanted to ban the journalist Paul Sperry, who outed the name of the CIA official who was known as the whistleblower in Trump's first impeachment inquiry, who complained about Trump's phone call with Zelensky. So Paul Sperry outed him in Real Clear Investigation. Right. So Schiff wanted him banned, and he also wanted any content on Twitter related to a staffer on his committee. He also wanted that censored because. Yeah, go ahead, man.
Yeah, you can see actually lower in this thread. There's a there's a quote about how far they went in asking for help with this. Hang on a second, I want to find it because it's just such a crazy
everything
thing.
Is like they'll just say anything is QAnon that they want to ban. This is QAnon related.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
they said it was
even if it's
QAnon
not.
related, and the logic that they use for that is crazy. But they asked for, among other things, like the complete suppression of any and all search results about Mr. Misko, who is one of the staffers for Schiff, and other committee staffers. So they wanted that. This tells me that they knew a lot about how Twitter's visibility filtering programs work, because they can do that. They can suppress search results.
Yeah, and Twitter obeyed and said we are de-amplifying these accounts.
Speaking of Twitter suppressing search results, you can test this for yourself. There are some accounts, people who I happen to follow on Twitter, and I don't want to say their names on here because I don't want to put them on blast like that. But there are some of them, I test this out recently. Even if you enter their handle, they don't show up. They don't show up. I mean, Case Study QB has talked about this before on this show about how his page, which is crazy, Case of all people, how his page had like this warning label. If you went to his page, like, warning, this could be sensitive content, which it's not. I don't know how he got that label, but it happened. But there are other people I know of, and I've tested this recently. If you enter their handle in Twitter, they don't come up. Yes, search suppression exists.
Which I'm de-amplified. I'm sure of it. If I were amplified, it's like every time John Brennan farts and coughs, he gets 80,000 likes. He's like,
Exactly.
Donald Trump leads it. His first tweet was like, Donald Trump is the leader of a kakistocracy. And it got like 7 million likes or something. He'd never tweeted before.
And now, what is the significance of this guy, Misko? Like, why would Adam Schiff want to have search results about him suppressed?
Well, Paul Sperry, so he allegedly had the relationship with Eric Chiaramella, who was the quote unquote whistleblower in the Ukraine affair, and there were multiple tweets that came out that were basically Sperry reporting, but the Schiff's office wanted anything to do with Chiaramella and or Misko's background. Look, there's reporting that Misko has a CIA background. I haven't confirmed that myself, but that's in some of these tweets. So they were mad about that, but they were also mad about things like, you see there's a tweet there.
Well, that's what I wanted to bring up. I wanted to bring up this.
Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to bring up this one because this is the most hilarious aspect. So Adam Schiff basically wanted to have Twitter take down tweets by a Pete Douche parody photo of Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. This is like
I know.
It's a funny account. Nate's Liver commentary. I follow this account. And yeah, this somehow upset Adam Schiff so much, this photo and this tweet.
Now, here's a question to ask yourself. If this was a photo of Donald Trump, it's like a meme. Like, does Adam Schiff not meme? Does he not know how to meme? Like, I don't know. But imagine if it was a photo of Donald Trump where they were making fun of his face. Would Adam Schiff have pressed them to take down that account? Probably not, because it wouldn't be his party. But since it's someone from his political party, he wanted them to take it down. A meme, for Christ's sakes. This is how far they have actually gone. Are you kidding me? Jeez Louise.
It's really actually animated. If you enter the tweet, the tongue kind of moves around a little bit, and it's even funnier.
I mean, why the people of California elected Adam Schiff to spend his time taking down tweets like this. This is a really top issue for voters. Yes.
Yeah. Taxpayer resources going to. This was on. They were doing this during office hours.
Yeah.
This is hilarious. I mean, okay, here's the request.
This is what they're doing with this is what the politicians are doing with their time. Like, all that money that you donate to them to put them in office. This is what they're doing with their time. They're like the police. They're like the police officers that spend more time at Dunkin' Donuts and chilling in the car than actually solving crimes.
Yeah. DNC reached out to Morning about a different tweet and the same image, but different.
Yeah,
but different textual context, and it's like CC'd to all of these executives.
Yeah, no, it's like every senior lawyer in the company had to deal with this.
But it's the fact that this is how dangerous it has become, right? Like, to this point where you can't even make fun of certain people. A politician may get mad. You made fun of someone from their party. Take it down. I mean, it's just the censorship. It all goes back to censorship again. It's like, but what is Adam Schiff's job? What is he really supposed to be doing? Like, what is he in DC to do if he's spending his time doing this? What a joke, man. I don't get it at all.
And look, a lot of people have been critical of the Twitter files in this project because they think that we're quote unquote cherry picking or showing only one side of things. Just to give you an example of how this worked, like I ran searches for Yoel Roth, the lawyer Stasha Cardiel, who it turns out I think it feels like she was running the company. Like everybody seems to be deferring to her, even lawyers technically ahead of her. There was a policy director named Lauren Culbertson. So I picked all the senior officials, and then I ran a search for DNC and RNC, right? On the off chance that...
Let's pause there for a second. So for people who continue to ask me the question, did he only look for, Democrat information, Republican information? So he just explained he ran a search for DNC and for RNC. So I'm glad that this is being cleared up, because there have been a lot of people actually that have been smearing Matt Taibbi recently, saying that he was only looking for information that would, basically harm Democrats. And I mean, I didn't believe that to be true, but you just heard him tell you that he looked for both. So
there were also requests coming in from the RNC to get rid of stupid pages, and it didn't turn up that. Like what you get from the DNC is just this pile of requests to get rid of mostly really stupid things, like people saying hey, Republicans, go out and vote on Wednesday or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
But occasionally it's something like this where it's legitimately a parody, and they have to take their time out and explain to the DNC that we don't do that. This is like speech, and they're not understanding that. On the RNC side, I'm not seeing it. Instead, what you see from the RNC are these constant letters saying, we're going to sue you if you keep doing this kind of stuff to us. So in other words, whether it's because the Republicans didn't think they would get away with it if they wrote to Twitter, or whether it's because there was a genuine difference in how they viewed this kind of thing, there just wasn't a flip side to the story where you're seeing similarly stupid stuff coming from the Republican side.
Well, the Republicans can't call on their buddies inside.
Right.
That was pretty revealing, right? When it came to that kind of stuff, he didn't see it on the Republican side. And he could probably say this 1,000 times and people will still smear him because they don't like the fact that he's saying negative things about the Democratic Party. Unfortunately, that's how some people are. That's all they see is it's negative things about Democratic Party. How dare you? You must be secret right wing.
Building like Emily Horn or whoever who used to work for for Obama. So what other option do they have?
Or Jim Baker, right? Yeah, exactly.
Jim Baker is the perfect example. And just really quickly, I mean, you found was it you who found the tweet? Or the file demonstrating that Jim Baker was presiding over censorship and suppression requests from inside Twitter HQ?
You mean about the Twitter files?
Yeah.
No, that was Barry actually who found that out.
Okay.
So she was in the office, and some employee she asked about. She had made a request about something, and she asked somebody in the office, hey, what's up with that request? And the employee said, it's coming. I just got to ask Jim. And she's like, Jim who? And Barry did a good job. She beat it out of this employee, a phone number. She calls the phone number, and the voice on the other end of the line finally admits that his name is Jim Baker. And this is how we discovered that Jim Baker was in the middle of reviewing this material. Subsequently, they accidentally sent us some other things that gave me a little bit more of a window. Like there was an outside law firm that was brought in addition to Jim Baker.
Yeah, so that's that. And he's referring to Barry Weiss when he says Barry, by the way. Let me go ahead and fast forward to the last piece that I wanted to play. Because like I said, obviously I'm not going to play the whole video. But there were a couple of parts here I did want to pick out. Was it this piece? I think it was right around here. Yeah.
What do you
there's so
mean
many-
by that? It haven't aroused the excitement you thought that?
Well, you know, I might have thought he would have been like, wow, that's all. I mean, he sometimes he is like that, right? Like, I mean, I can't talk about a lot of this because these are all off the record conversations.
Yeah.
But you know, he's got a lot of stuff going on. Like the company's losing, you know, bucket loads of money, and there's dynamics that I don't understand going on. Like I know for sure, because I've been told by other people in the company, that our presence there is deeply resented and is considered like, you know, potentially you know, destructive to the entire venture. And so there are people who are worried about their jobs, and
He's talking about Elon Musk. The part that's right before this, he says that he was, I guess in a way, he was kind of surprised that like some of the information that he found, that Elon Musk wasn't as shocked or like, whoa, like that's exciting. Like kind of the way that we were. Like when this information started coming out, I was like, holy crap. Like, oh my God, what's coming next? It's coming this way. Like that's how we were. But I guess he was kind of surprised that some of the information that they found, that they released, he expected Elon Musk to be more, I guess, excited about, and he wasn't necessarily excited about some of the information. So that's what he's talking about there.
And are looking at us like, you know, our presence there is a mere presence there is an insult. So is that working on his mind too? Right? Like, I don't know. It's hard. It's really hard to say. Obviously you're right. He is a defense contractor. You know, and we are finding things that, that probably wouldn't be popular with people who would be inclined to give out defense contracts. So, you know, we'll find out when he turns the faucet off. We'll find out. But so
Has
far,
anyone been stopped from reporting anything to your
no
knowledge?
no.
And how?
Okay, did you guys hear that part? Max Blumenthal asked, has anyone been stopped from reporting anything? They said no. So listen to this.
Not to my knowledge. I haven't been. So
Okay, and how are you invited, and how is everyone invited? I mean, I find it kind of ironic that I guess Barry Weiss is playing this role now as an adversarial figure, but she's heavily involved in censoring and attempting to suppress Palestinian academics and Palestine-related activists who.
I knew this was going to come up. Yeah, I told you guys, Barry Weiss, from what I've seen from her, it's been cringe. Like, to me, she kind of came across as like your standard neoliberal. She is not for the Palestinian movement. She has been very vocal about that. She said some cringe things in reference to the Palestinian movement as well. So I knew that was going to come up. But the question that he's asking here is, how were you guys selected? Like, long story short, like, how was this, you know, how did they decide to pick you and Barry Weiss and Lee Fang and Schreiberger, and I forget there's another one too, shoot. But they keep adding more people to this list. So how did they make that decision? That's what Max is asking here.
Want to speak out. She led the campaign against Joseph Mossad at Columbia. She is someone I would have associated with the neoconservative movement, which is now invested deeply in censoring these sorts of opinions. Like, I don't know if she stepped away. It's not like I've had some conversation with her, but it's ironic. And I don't know if anyone's going to be looking into Twitter banning countless Palestine related accounts.
Well, I would look at it. I mean, I've written about that a lot in the past.
Yeah. But how was everyone chosen? I mean, I'm not saying you're a conservative journalist, but there does seem to be a certain political through line and a sense of shared sensibility among those who were chosen.
Well, I think the first thing is that none of us are, with the exception, I guess, of Lee, who still technically works at the Intercept. You know, none of us have a connection to traditional corporate media.
That's important to note. So the people that were selected are technically they're all independent journalists. I know some people may say, well, Barry Weiss, New York Times. Remember, Barry Weiss left the New York Times. There was this whole like interview process about that. She talked to Joe Rogan about that. I think I may have reported on that at that point in time when it happened. I don't know, it's been a while. But just to keep that in mind, with the exception of Lee Fang does write for The Intercept. I'm not sure if he's a regular staffer or if he's a contributor. I'd have to go and check. But so far, all of them are independent.
Anymore, right? So that's probably the first thing. My guess is that he wanted this to be a burn on traditional corporate press, and I think it has been. So, but I don't have any insight into.
I mean, it sounds like he went with people who he trusts, which is how it works. I mean, that's where people get sources from is if the source trusts them. And I mean, I just
or if
come
he's
back
a fan of them. I mean,
yeah,
right.
or if he, I mean, sure, but and also for me, what matters is the material accurate or not, and is it newsworthy? And just, I mean, the Washington Post is owned by a defense contractor, but if the Washington Post had a explosive story, which they have sometimes, and they've exposed war crimes, for example, in Afghanistan. They had a big series recently about U.S. files and how the U.S. covered up the progress of the war in Afghanistan. It's still it's valuable on its merits, and that's just the reality of the media environment that we're in. It's just like we have our overlords, they control our institutions, and the hope is that sometimes some factual information can get out within those constraints. And I think with it,
I'm going to add something here, then I'll let Aaron finish and we'll go to the next story. In reference to who Elon Musk chose, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say he's probably not going to pick someone who he would consider to be on the far left. And I hate saying that phrase, but I don't know how else to describe it. But he probably wouldn't pick someone that he considers to be on the far left. So like he wouldn't pick, number one, I'm not a journalist per se. I've written one article. He would never pick me. Like he wouldn't pick, give me somebody, throw me someone out in the chat. Like he probably wouldn't pick people from Black Agenda Report. He probably wouldn't pick, I'm just going with me here. He probably wouldn't pick Danny Haifong. He probably wouldn't pick Margaret Kimberly. He probably is not going to pick someone that he considers to be on the far left. And same thing for what he says is the far right. He probably isn't going to pick someone like that. Because I say this because I've seen him be very critical about both of those sides on Twitter and in interviews as well. Yes, Nick Nugent, Chris Hedges, right. He's probably not going to, you guys are naming names. He's probably not going to pick like Chris Hedges, Whitney Webb's another one he's probably not going to go with. Yeah. That's what I would imagine. I'm going to let Aaron finish and then we're going to go to the next
Twitter
story.
files so far, there's been a lot of great material as we've talked about today.
Yeah, and he's, certainly this stuff isn't coming out if this guy doesn't buy the company for $44 billion or whatever it is. And I'm sure there's stuff that's come out that hasn't been pleasant for him, right? And he hasn't shut it down yet. So I don't have to be thankful for that. It's not my job to be thankful for that. But it's I think on the whole, it's a net plus. Like as long as the information's coming in, it's a tremendous opportunity, not just for me, but for any journalist to look at this information and cross-reference it with other things that have come out, other leaks, other types of investigative reports. And so I think it's been a good thing. And the question of motive, it's funny how people only selectively bring that up to me as far as I'm concerned. Like, sources always have motives, and what's important is what our motives are when we look at the material. And the only ethical question for me is if I ever get the sense that the stuff I'm being sent is not what it's been represented then I'm gonna have an ethical moment where I'll have to say I can't do this anymore, or I can't say that this is a representative batch or whatever, right? Like, so.
Good point there, Matt. Which I think we would expect him to not do something like that anyway. But definitely go check out that full interview. Like I said, the interview's pretty long. So definitely go ahead and check that out when you get a chance. Just want to answer a question here from DC. I mean, you're listing journalists who don't have award-winning books. Chris Hedges is a Pulitzer Prize winner. So I'm not sure about that. I do want to go ahead and get into the next story in just a second. Let me get to these comments here because we do have call-in tonight. And this next story is the call-in conversation. But as usual, you guys can talk about other things we discussed on the show tonight as well. Thank you so much for the super chat. Reginald Morton says all caps. Thank you so much for that. Sebastian says, I'm glad Adam Schiff is losing his committee seat. Adam Koch says, Sabby, those are the same people who still think Russiagate is true. Brent says, apparently congressmen and women are just internet hall monitors. What? I hear you. All right, let's go ahead and get into this next story. If you have not heard about this, Hakeem Jeffries, and he's not the only one, has been promoting the next, or who he feels should be the next chief judge of New York. And there is a problem with this judge. Now, I want to get into that in just a second, but I also want to show you who else is promoting this judge, and that is Kathy Hochul, who is the governor of New York. Now, recently, she attended an event at a church in New York, and there were people there, some of the supporters there, some of the residents there are speaking out against it. They do not want her to support or give her support for LaSalle. And LaSalle is the one who is being promoted by her and by Hakeem Jeffries. Let's get into this. Watch the extremes that Kathy Hochul goes to. Now, this comes from Jeffrey. He says, using the cops to pull a black lady out of her own church for being disruptive. Now, let's go ahead and show this. So again, she is speaking at a church on Martin Luther King Day. And this young woman here is here to let Kathy Hochul know that she does not agree with someone like LaSalle being propped up here for chief judge. Listen to this.
I pray that you listen to parents, and I pray that you control that.
Eric, can you use volume booster here?
We need good conservation, Governor. I pray for you.
Thanks.
I pray that you listen to. I pray that you listen to parents, and I pray that you control. That you listen to.
So first of all, why are the police there? Why does she have the police? Watch this. So you can't speak out?
Parents, and I pray that you control that.
You see that? So you have to have the police make her leave. She stood up. She's not being violent. Did she throw anything at Kathy Hochul? No, she has not. She stood up to disagree with Kathy Hochul. And here come the police. Also, why do you need 4 of them? 1, 2, 3, 4.
We need good conservation, Governor. I pray for you. Stand with working class.
Ridiculous. Okay, so that's one clip there. Now, Jeremy goes on to say politicians use churches to push themselves, but this was so crass and blatant. Hochul barely even talked about MLK before switching to promoting LaSalle's nomination and twisting MLK's words to justify a moderate who literally thought racial bias in jury selection was totally fine. So there are a number of problems with LaSalle. I'm going to get into more specifics when I get into the article. There are a number of problems. It's not just the fact that he's anti-choice. There are other issues about him as well. But this is who Kathy has selected here. So listen to how she changes the rhetoric again. This is supposed to be about MLK. That's what this is supposed to be about.
My own parents were criticized for being so far left. They deserted area, but that's how I was raised. So I need you to know that about me. The values that I bring to the selection process and how I found them. The person named Hector LaSalle, who, yes, he'll make history. And it's about time we stop making history. It should never have taken this long for a person of color.
There we go with identity politics. We need to make history. It should have never taken this long for a person of color. Never mind the fact that he's anti-choice. Never mind the fact that he's anti-union. And apparently he doesn't have any problems with racial discrimination in reference to jury selection processes. All that matters to Kathy Hochul is the fact that you go ahead and put him in anyway because of the identity politics. Because we need to have someone who's a person of color. It doesn't really matter what their views are. It doesn't really matter what they believe. We just need the image there. Terrible.
Hispanic to lead the highest court in our state. My own parents were criticized for being so far left.
And it's so interesting too, because there's not many people here, obviously. So Jeremy goes on to say, Hochul even went to the low of talking about dissent to LaSalle as if it was basically all lies when opposition has been based on clear cases that trigger huge concerns about his judgment and ideology. So this is a quick one here as well. You see how they run cover for each other?
Take another look. Listen to the man. Don't judge him.
What?
Understand.
She said, listen to the man. Don't judge him. No, you should judge all of them. Do you see how dangerous this rhetoric is now? Don't judge him. Just put him in. He's a person of color. Listen to him. Don't judge him. Don't disagree with him. This is how far they're going.
Open-minded. And all those ways that we want to be treated. And I'm taught that a lot. Do it to others and have them do it to you. Who else wants to sit there and be judged and have their name reduced to lies? And we see that.
So she's now saying the things that people are saying about LaSalle are lies, but they're not lies.
Lies travel around the world 4 times faster. Around the plane, past plane around the earth, before the truth has a chance to leave the target. That's what's happened here. The lies have circulated before the truth.
People voted for this woman. Like, seriously, she's like, that's what's happened here. The lies have circulated. What made you, if you're listening, if you're watching and you live in New York, please tell me what made you vote for her. I'm curious. I gotta know. You gotta let me know. Now, let's go on because it's not just that particular situation. Other people are not happy about this as well, including a gentleman here who is a part of the union. Now, this comes from Zach Williams and said, wow, this union guy is PO'd about Hector LaSalle nomination and Hochul for making it so soon after wanting union help to beat Zeldin. Listen to what the union gentleman here says about how he feels about supporting Hochul and what he wish he could do differently. Listen to this.
Good morning. Good morning. I don't have much more prepared stuff. 3 weeks ago, I was Team Hochul. For the last year,
I was Team Hochul. When we needed people to get out to vote, I was Team Hochul.
Come on.
When she was worried that she was going to lose this race for governor, I was Team Hochul.
Come on.
The phone rang, and the phone rang, and the phone rang. We need more money. We need more volunteers. We need labor behind us.
Come on.
She promised us that we were going to have a seat at the table.
Yes, she did.
She put us on the menu. This is not right. Good morning.
So once again, another politician who has lied. So he's not too happy about this. Other people aren't happy about it either. But it's not just Governor Hochul. It's also Hakeem Jeffries. Now, I expect this type of behavior from him. Some people are freaking out, but he's also supporting LaSalle as well. Listen to this. This is crazy shit. I'm going to tell you about this guy. So Jordan Zacharin tweeted this. Hakeem Jeffries is urging Democrats to confirm an anti-choice, anti-union Republican judge to be Chief Justice of the state's highest court. Just cost Democrats 4 seats and a likely majority in Congress. The worst part, it is not a surprise. And he has the link here. He shared this from Joseph Spector saying Judge Hector LaSalle is highly qualified to be the chief judge of the state of New York, period, full stop. That statement is coming from Hakeem Jeffries. Hakeem Jeffries is one of those politicians, as someone like Cornel West will say, black faces in high places. Not really for us, not really about us. He's just there to give the impression that he's going to do something for black people. He's going to do something for working class people because he's a Democrat, but he's actually just as establishment and corrupt as they come. Now, you tell me, if you have this guy, Hector LaSalle, and he's anti-choice, and Democrats were begging people to come out and vote in the midterms so that they could codify Roe v. Wade into law, which still hasn't happened, by the way. How can you so boldly ignore the fact that this guy who you want to promote, who you are supporting, is anti-choice? Make it make sense. After all those young people came out to support in the midterms. And by the way, had it not been for the young voter turnout, the Democratic Party would have lost. They would have lost more than just losing the House. You see what I'm saying? But here's Hakeem Jeffries thinking that this is a great idea. Someone like him, he is going to be dangerous because, see, again, he also was propped up by using identity politics. Now, listen to this. This is from Common Dreams. Disgracing himself, Hakeem Jeffries stumps for anti-abortion judge. Let's get into it. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries joined New York Governor Kathy Hochul and other state Democrats at a Bronx rally on Saturday, just days ahead of what is sure to be a contentious confirmation hearing in which progressive lawmakers opposed to LaSalle's appointment to lead the state court of appeals could be decided. Progressives charge that Hector D. LaSalle is too conservative, anti-abortion, anti-labor, and anti-due process, and his appointment would push one of New York's highest courts even further to the right. Now, after what just happened with the rail workers, why would you want to promote someone who's anti-labor? After what just happened with the overturn of Roe v. Wade, why would you want to appoint someone or promote someone who's anti-choice? And this is why I say Can the Democratic Party still go around and say, hey, we're pro-choice? Can they still say that? After Henry Cuellar, can they say that? After Tim Kaine, can they say that? After Hector LaSalle, can they still say that? After Hakeem Jeffries and Kathy Hochul supporting people who are anti-choice, can they still say that? Let's go on. Jeffries, however, voiced his support for the judge, saying LaSalle is highly qualified to serve as the chief judge. Period. Full stop. Jeffries urged an up or down vote by the full state Senate. It's important for the entire New York State Senate to treat this nomination with the same dignity, decency, and respect that every other nomination has received. In December, the Democratic governor announced that she'd chosen the conservative judge as the next Chief Justice of the State Court of Appeals. Judge LaSalle is currently the presiding justice of the appellate division in Brooklyn. The nomination was described as mystifying and horrible news by legal experts, including public defender Eliza Lawrence, who pointed to LaSalle's record on abortion and labor rights as reasons that he was potentially the worst of the 7 nominees the governor chose between. Did you hear what she just said? He was the worst of the 7 nominees that the governor chose between. And that's who they nominated. What's this really about? Why would they pick the worst candidate? Let's go on. The State Senate Judiciary Committee will hold a confirmation hearing on Wednesday. Progressive lawmakers are working to let the nomination die in committee without advancing it to a full Senate vote. At least 14 Democratic senators have indicated they oppose his selection. The confirmation fight pits the moderate Hochul against the party's progressives. Progressives and labor leaders see the pick as a betrayal after many within their ranks worked to deliver vital last-minute votes to Hochul during the final frantic days of last year's election. Some reluctant allies are regretting their decision. You see what I was telling you about once these people win? Once these people get in? You see what I was saying? Help me, I need your vote. You need me to win. I'm going to stand by you. I'm going to help the workers. And then once they get in, you see how they just turn. The tide just changes. She promised stuff that we would have a seat at the table. Now, that is the gentleman that you saw in the previous video clip, Jimmy. Now, Jimmy is the president of the statewide Iron Workers Union. She put us on the menu. This is not right. The way it was rolled out, it was so unprofessional and backstabbing. Democratic leadership in the state Senate warned the newly elected governor in early December that there would be fierce opposition to a LaSalle nomination. This is what Common Dreams reported last month. LaSalle is currently the presiding justice of the New York Supreme Court's second judicial department. And as Alexander Salmon and Mark Joseph Stern wrote at Slate, his record is an intermediate appeals court judge, demonstrates a deep hostility to the very values that Hochul claimed she wanted to uphold with his appointment. We are seeing a recurring trend here, right? Of these Democrat politicians saying that they want to uphold certain rights, and only to see them in the end go against those rights or to prop up people that are definitely against those rights. Isn't this a recurring theme that we've seen? That's happened with the squad. In 2017, LaSalle ruled that a so-called crisis pregnancy center where people are pressured into carrying unwanted pregnancies instead of obtaining abortion care should be shielded from the state attorney general's investigation into whether the facility Whoopsie. Where did I go? Oh, here we go. Into rather the facility. Where did we go? Into whether the facility was practicing medicine without a license. The judge invoked the First Amendment when he ruled that advertisements and promotional literature, brochures, and pamphlets that the center provided or disseminated to the public should not be investigated. He also joined other judges in 2015 in handing down a shocking opinion. Salmon and Stern wrote that allowed Cablevision to sue union leaders for criticizing the company's response to Hurricane Sandy, and ruled in 2014 that a criminal defendant should be blocked from appealing his conviction after the defendant claimed he'd been subjected to an illegal search. This is the guy. You know what you got here? What do we ask for? We asked for progressive policies. We asked for people to go into the house that we're going to fight. Instead, what we ended up with are these milquetoast, neoliberal, pro-police shills who want to keep funding and give more money to the police, who support anti-abortion candidates, who back the state of Israel and, look down their nose at BDS, the Palestinian-led movement. And then the cherry on top, they add a black face to it. So all those things I just mentioned to you are easily ignored by a lot of the populace because all they see is the face. Most people are not going to look as far as we do. Most people are not going to look at someone's record. Most people just see the face and the image, and they vote for them based off of feeling. I like this person because they make me feel good. I'm going to vote for this person because they look the same way that I do. We have the same skin color. Identity politics. Not having any idea what these people are really about half the time. That's what we have in the House. That's what we have. It goes on to say, although Hochul claimed she was planning to nominate a chief justice who would help defend against the U.S. Supreme Court's rapid retreat from precedent and continue our march towards progress, if LaSalle is confirmed by the state Senate to a 14-year term, he would entrench a reactionary majority that would fight tooth and nail against the priorities of New York progressives. Now that comes from Salmon and Stern. This is just crazy. You just have just a bunch of sellouts. That's what we have. Hakeem Jeffries, Eric Adams. These people are just sellouts. This is what you have for the Democratic Party. This is what we have. These people are progressive. Even some of the members of the Progressive Caucus aren't progressive, but they made it in there somehow. So we're going to talk about this on Call In tonight because this has been a recurring theme where I feel like the Democratic Party has just been moving further and further to the right. Whether it's anti-choice, whether it's anti-workers, we have Democrats voting against the workers now, being strike breakers. We have Democrats supporting anti-choice candidates like Henry Cuellar. Nancy Pelosi and Jim Clyburn supported Henry Cuellar and went down there to help him. I want more people to see this and to wake up to this reality. And I want more people to see it and wake up to it because I want them to realize at the end of the day, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, they're just one corporate party. They don't really care about the people. The Democratic Party is going to tell you that they're for the workers, that they're for a woman's right to choose. But are they? There's so much more I can say here for the sake of time, because I know we got to get to the call-in segment too. But if they were that much for a woman's right to choose, if they were that much for that, why didn't they codify Roe v. Wade into law decades ago? If it meant that much to them, why didn't they do it? Why? Because it didn't really mean that much to them. This could have been done a long time ago. Long time ago. So I'm going to go ahead and take a quick break. If you haven't had a chance, hit that like button, smash like that bad boy, and then I'll come back and we'll head on over to call in.
All right. How's everybody doing on this fine Tuesday night? This is where we give our Sabby a little break before we jump into call-in, which will be starting soon. You can, here, I'll put the call-in link in the chat. You can hit that link and watch it or even participate on your browser, or you can install the call-in app on your smartphone and run it this way. Here we go. Tonight is our call-in about Hakeem Jeffries. So that'll be starting soon. In the meantime, until the Sabby comes back, let's check out. We got a few super chats and regular chats. I think it's mostly regular chats. Sabby had asked people if they were in New York, if and why they voted for her, for Kathy Hochul. And Scarlett said, I didn't vote for her. People did vote for her simply because she is a Democrat. And from Methodical Madness, the Bronx here, I didn't vote for that nonsense. She's out of her mind. We get a comment here from my man Saul. Hakeem is a careerist politician and not to be trusted. And we had this message from YepX, and we'll pass that on. I'll pass that on to Sabs about your DM. And from President Jesus, he's the best candidate for capital. Yeah, I like this one because this is what's really going on here. It's about the money, and like Gyro 42 saying politics, corruption, influence, quid pro quo. We had from Gamer, my man, saying there's no such thing as progressive Dems. Yeah, I mean that's what I keep saying is. There are no progressive Democrats in Washington, no progressives in Congress. It's they're corporate, they're corrupt, and I don't think we can or do call them out as corrupt often enough. And from AdKid, why would the governor actively choose the worst judge? Why? Because the Dems can use him to their own agenda to ensure workers' rights policies are not allowed to succeed. Yep, I think that's definitely in play here. And I know this chat from Lorez saying like a 14-year term, and I remember when I heard that and my first thought also was like, 14 years, that's a long time. But then I remembered most judges in the U.S. and at the federal level get lifetime appointments, and so that could be 14 years, that could be 20, 30, 40 years. That can be a long time, and so we should probably be working on term limits for judges, because that definitely is a problem. You got to figure they can just go on there and be in there for the rest of their life. It's I think it goes back to an earlier time. I mean, these kind of standards came in, back in the early days of the country and in the Constitution, and a person's lifetime wasn't so long, especially as it is now. Bad Cookies coming in saying the average for Supreme Court judges is about 25 years. That is a long term. I also noticed in the chat mention of I just wanted to note at the top of the chat in YouTube, you have a selector that says live chat versus the top chat. And I'm totally in the habit. Whenever I get in, I pick the live chat. It always defaults you to the top chat, and what the top chat means is YouTube is censoring it. So go with live chat, not top chat. And get in the habit of flipping that over, and then you won't have chats hidden from you when YouTube thinks they should be hidden. But yeah, the biggest thing I always say about judges and like Supreme Court justices is before anything else, they are corporate. That's the biggest thing is they are going to look out for the interests of big money and for corporations, and everything else is secondary, and they'll try to slide, they'll have some who have some culture war values on one side and one or the other, but the biggest thing is the money. They vote the way that the big money interest wants, and that's their primary qualification. And I think if you look at it that way, all this stuff becomes a lot harder to understand. Yeah, Yepex, I would show your chat, but that might get us in trouble on YouTube. And then, one of the other things that occurred to me, I wanted to mention, we've been talking about the awful statue in of the MLK statue, and so what it's supposed to represent. Excuse me. And by the way, I Corey and I and Sabby, I remember we walked by this thing before it was opened, and it was all fenced off and covered up, and we didn't know what it was going to be, and we certainly didn't think it was going to be what it turned out to be. But okay, so it's supposed to represent this moment when MLK and Coretta Scott King heard that he had won the Nobel Prize and the big embrace, and that's all fine and well, but if you're going to pick a moment from Martin Luther King's life to commemorate, to say this is the biggest, huge moment that should be commemorated, you're going to pick the moment when he won the Nobel Prize? I mean, when a group of white people in Sweden decided to give him a prize, and it just to me, that also says a lot about where this is coming from. Did you hear what I just said about what they picked? Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
That occurred to me. It's like, ooh, he won the Nobel. He did it, Sabby. They did it. That's when he did it.
Aye. It's a mess, man. It's a mess.
All right, calling links are there. See you around.
That's right. Let's head on over to call in, guys. Should be an interesting discussion, especially if you live in New York. I definitely want to hear from you about this. Like, why did people pick her? And what do you guys feel? How do you feel about this? So tonight, this is episode 72. Hakeem Jeffries promotes anti-choice judge. Hakeem Jeffries is promoting anti-choice and anti-union judge Hector LaSalle for Chief Justice of the highest court. Hector identifies as a Democrat. That's what if you look him up, it says he identifies as a Democrat, although some people are calling him Republican. So I'm really confused there. But if you live in New York, you may know more about this dude. Is the Democratic Party moving further to the right? Let's discuss. I want to hear your take on this. And also, what can we do about it? How can we prevent something like this from happening in the future? My recommendation is confronting those individuals, direct action, doing things like what Jose did, going to those town hall meetings and calling them out. I think that's very important. So that call-in link is pinned to the chat. I will see you guys over there. You know how we do this. Wednesday, I'm not here tomorrow, but I'll upload clips. I'll be back on Thursday with another guest. Yeah. So let's go ahead and head over to call in, guys. So have a good night. Keep up the fight.